What's the most NSFW experience you witnessed right in front of your eyes? I watched a man fall when his rappelling gear failed. He fell about 100 feet, and the sound his body made when he hit will haunt me forever. He broke his spine, pelvis, both legs, one arm, and an orbital bone, but he survived. There were a lot of people around to give first aid, and I helped carry him out of the canyon to the ambulance, and I swear I thought he was dead already. He looked like thawed hamburger meat. The rangers? Park police? Not sure what they were, took our info, and a few days later, to our surprise, the guy was alive and wanted to see the people who carried him out. He gave us all some really nice leather backpacks from the company he worked for. I still have it some 20+ years later. Edit/update. The guy was in the hospital for many weeks, but after a very long rehab he made a nearly full recovery. That was mostly due to him being in really good physical shape before the accident. A fentanyl overdose. Was a younger woman, couldn't have been older than 23 or 24. Thankfully, I and someone else nearby both called 911, and the paramedics showed up in time to resuscitate her. She lunged at one of the paramedics after regaining consciousness, then ran off. Her cousin witnessed the whole thing, and it was pretty obvious it fucked him up pretty bad. Ended up buying the poor guy breakfast, and the whole time he was more or less in shock, saying how she was like a little sister to him. This wasn't the person he knew. She'd never do something like this. A coworker, just before quitting, took a shit in their cubicle. They wanted to have him charged with indecent exposure, but since no one saw him, besides me, and I wasn't admitting to having seen it, they dropped it. They also tried to use the defecating in public laws, but the police pointed out that their office was in fact private, not a public space. The man became a legend around the office. I was working the customer service desk at a sporting goods store. One of my job duties was clearing any gun that people brought into the store, usually to get it sighted in by our techs or to see if our gun counter would buy it from them. Some dude comes in with a massive .338 Lapua rifle. Imagine the little brother of the Barrett 50 calories you see in movies and games. It's at least a $5,000 to $6,000 gun. Well, apparently the dude who owns it is all money and no sense, because he walks in and immediately starts violating the most basic of gun safety rules. His fingers just casually hanging out in the trigger guard as he comes in, and he's sweeping the entire store with the muzzle as he walks. I put on my best customer service face and ask him to put the gun down so I can ask him the routine questions before I can clear the gun. While putting it down, he once again flags me with the barrel while his fingers on the trigger. I keep my cool and get to my questions. If he answers no to all of them, then I'm good to clear the gun. There's a few of them, but the one that matters here is there any ammunition in the chamber or magazine of the firearm? He says no to everything, so I put the barrel into the clearing trap and rack the bolt back. Lo and behold, a live round pops out and reveals the full magazine. The safety was off, which means this guy was flagging a store of people, and me, with a gun that was one slip of the finger away from making a very large hole in myself and probably at least one other person. Going back to my apartment after college classes ended. Homeless people fucking right outside my apartment complex by a tree. I try not to make eye contact. Hey, you want to join? No thanks. Have a good night. I wasn't there for this, but my co-workers were at a lunch and a woman pulled out her boob and squirted milk at a very high-ranking employee across the table. A co-worker at a factory got a set of shop shears caught in an extrusion puller, link is SFW, just a page for a manufacturer of said equipment that has pictures of the gear so you can see what it does. The shears got tangled in a strip of plastic that had got wrapped around the belt, and when the shears rounded the turn with his fingers stuck in them, it basically ripped his hand in half, nearly twisting his thumb, middle finger, and forefinger off. All because he thought he could clear a jam/tangle without having to stop and restart the line. Saving 15 minutes cost him a functioning hand. When was like 9, me and some ice hockey buds saw a dude split his head wide open on an ice rink, and then some inexperienced skaters trip over him and hurt themselves. In a club in Berlin, Germany. It was quite sex positive. A woman in her 30s sat down next to me on a weird chair and we started chatting. At some point during the conversation a man kneeled down in front of her and started to fist her, consensually. She didn't break eye contact. She didn't even flinch. She just continued the conversation like normal. I had no idea how to deal with that and didn't want to be rude, so we continued the conversation and I tried to ignore the man who had half his arm in her vagina. Walked in on 2 co-workers having an affair. He later cornered me and threatened me. She is my brother-in-law's best friend's wife, and I've known him a lot longer than she has. I reported it, mainly the threat, to HR and talked to my sister about it to see if she and her husband wanted to talk to him about it. I got written up by the VP and the conduct team of where I worked because I told my sister about it. Allegedly I put the woman at risk because, and I quote conduct, her husband is most likely going to beat her over this. I've known him for over 30 years, he doesn't have a violent bone in his body, and if he showed any signs, he wouldn't still be good friends with my sister and her husband. A few years later, did he ever beat her? Nope. Did they go to counseling? Yes. A woman on train pooped, a hard shitball which just dropped out of her gown, which she proceeded to pick up smell then throw out of the window. She then started talking to a man which soon turned to them fondling one another. Soon after police showed up, dropped them at the next station where railway police force took them. Because they were clearly unstable so possibly to the nearest asylum. Ran into a burning house as a teenager. It was an old couple just a few houses down from mine. Got through the living room, into the dining area, but smoke started getting bad. Got down on my knees and crawled to the hallway, to look into the bedrooms. The couple were dead, in bed, burning. I know this by the shape of the lumps, not because they were recognizable. I learned 2 things. 1. Don't ever run into a burning house. It's dumb. I got lucky. 2. The smell of burning humans is something you never forget. Driving Uber I caught a dude jerking off in my car. Turned around and he had his dick in one hand and his phone in the other hand recording it. It kind of stunned me at how bold he was. I kicked him out and still charged him for the entire ride. This was one of the reasons I bought a dual-facing dash cam. Giant Eagle is a grocery store you can find across all of the US, but I was doing some grocery shopping on my lunch break and a guy came into the store with a gun, apparently intending to kill one of the cashiers. Later found out it was the guy's ex-GF, and then himself, but he ended up shooting himself in the head. I just happened to be 2 checkout lanes away from him when it happened. Edit. I can link the story if anyone is interested, sadly nothing much came from it though. A girl blowing a guy at a bus stop at like 2 AM. She then threw up and continued sucking his dick. Never change, Glasgow. Edit. For everyone worried it was them. It was in June of 2013. Which celebrity is considered beautiful but you just can't see it? A character on some show or game said the secret of celebrities is they're all actually strange looking or oddly ugly in some special way. I've always remembered that. My search history is approaching 30 celebrities because I have no idea who most of these people are. Remember when Blake Shelton was named sexiest man alive and literally not a single person agreed? Drake. I know several women who think he's absolutely gorgeous. Purely on looks he seems completely unremarkable to me. Drake. Like why? In what dimension or planet? Mick Jagger. Even when he was young, he looked like a muppet to me, I just don't get women who drool over him. Ditto for Rod Stewart. If you want my body and you think I'm sexy. Ew, no thank you. That guy who was married to J-Lo. Mark Anthony. Megan Fox's boyfriend. What's his name? Chris Brown. Even before the Rihanna thing I never understood why people had the hots for him. After Rihanna? Even uglier. Orville Redenbacher. Some girls get so hot for him, but I don't see it. Adam Levine. He looks like a thumb with glued-on ears and glued-on patchy face hair that someone else shaved off first. Am I the only one who just doesn't see all the oohing and awing over Jared Leto? He looks like he doesn't bathe and there are all the stories of his method acting. Leonardo DiCaprio was cute and then rapidly aged into Jack Nicholson. For me it's the social media / TikTok hot look. The pouty lips, tight ponytail, bog-standard posing and exaggerated dimensions. It's all so artificial. Edit, spelling. Every Kardashian, every Jenner, bro they got more augmentations than Tony Stark's suit. How did you find out you were getting cheated on? A flirty text from a guy popped up on while we were looking at her phone for a place to eat. He complimented a picture I had just taken of her. She sent it to him while around me. Bold. Also this happened in the Eiffel Tower, only a couple of hours into what was supposed to be 2-week vacation. My daughter told me I was pregnant and they were doing the standard tests including STDs and I tested positive for chlamydia. I was so embarrassed, but glad to have found out because it turns out that can really mess up a pregnancy. Still took me another year to file for divorce though. Edit, since this seems to have confused many people somehow, I was married. My husband got caught cheating on me while pregnant. I forgave him. He came clean. I forgave him and he did it a few more times and we got a divorce. I don't know how this implies that I had a kid by another man, don't wipe properly, did butt stuff, had a false positive. My neighbor told me that there was a odd car parked in my driveway when the ex was supposed to be at work. The other girl was wearing my clothes in front of me. Edit, thanks for all the love, guys. The one part of this entire debacle that was hysterical was that she tried to deny that she was wearing my clothes when I confronted her. Until I pointed out the oil stain on the white shirt she was wearing which my sister caused when she borrowed said shirt without asking. Plot twist, she and I are friendly now and he's off being miserable somewhere else. My friends found out before me and knew they, the cheaters, were going to the movies together. My friends breed * me to go see a movie with them so that I could catch them in the act because they knew I wouldn't believe them if they just told me. True friends. Edit, begged, not breed. I didn't know at the time we broke up, for sure, but she was engaged a week after we broke up. I can't even figure out how that worked, exactly. The other woman knocked on my front door and asked me to take my kid and get out so that the two of them could be together and be happy. I told her she could have him, but they'd have to go because technically I owned the house. I then told him he was free to go. He did not go, sadly. She'd been dropped off by her ex who she'd cheated on with my ex-husband. That was quite awkward. He hooked up with random girls when he was supposed to be at his mom. One evening at a friend's party there was a girl who wasn't of our group, a friend of a friend. She went, "Oh. Hi. Remember me? It was so fun. Phone bill." She was texting some random number 600 times a month. I thought I recognized the number and when I put it in my phone it was a buddy of mine. When I saw her reflected in his sunglasses in a picture that he texted me. A man knocked on my door and introduced himself as the husband of a woman that my husband worked with. He was there to tell me that his wife was having an affair with my husband. My husband never came home after that. He got an Airbnb and told me to get a lawyer. We had been together for 24 years. She stopped giving me hugs. Sometimes you just know. Fuck guys, thanks for all the love. Together for about 8 years, married for only 3. Crazy story, but we were living in an abusive scenario with another person and she was what was keeping me sane. It was rough to realize she was cheating on me with this guy. I feel better now. Definitely learned over time that questioning yourself and spending time wondering what you could have done different is essentially pointless. Went on a solo road trip to CA from New York. My then BF of 5 years was supposed to fly to San Diego when I arrived, then we'd drive home together. Pick him up from the airport. Use his phone to pull up directions for our restaurant reservation. He gets a notification from a social media app he must have forgotten to delete. I ask him about it, he grabs his phone and deletes the app, says it would hurt me more to read the conversations he'd been having with women, and that I'm obviously going to dump him either way, so he wanted to save himself the embarrassment of getting exposed. I made him call his mom and arrange to have his stuff moved out of our apartment. Told him to find his own way home. Finished the road trip home without him. When I got home it was like he'd never lived there. Exactly how I wanted. When she left me cause she got pregnant, and thought it was a different guy's. Turns out I was one of 3 possible dads, couple years later and a few paternity tests and turns out it was mine.